Following the advice of my crew, I split this video off from the first to spare the audience too much FaceTime with me. In this video, we'll go back out to the caliber 40 LRC and go over the steps I take in choosing where to mount this B&G SR10 display on the boat. While most people think, wow, that's a little bit surprising that there's even more than one option for where these can go, this kind of gives you a glimpse into the thought process that Dockside puts into installations. We can make lots of equipment fit in different places. It doesn't all have to be just the way the original layout was. Modifications are possible, they just usually take more time. So in this instance, we'll go over some of those other options. This goes along with why we are always asking you so many questions about your boat. How are you going to use it? Where are you going to use it? How many people are going to be aboard it normally? What waters are you in? All those things. How you use your boat dictates what electronics you may want. So every boat operator is different. The same regulator that fishes inshore will need different sounders, different screens, maybe a different radar for somebody who fishes that same model regulator offshore. Same way, somebody day sailing their Catalina 425 out of Mystic would probably need a different layout than somebody cruising Maine, which would be different than somebody who's ocean sailing it. Our caliber 40 was originally laid out to sail out of a yacht club on the Great Lakes. It was great for that owner. They had it for 19 years there, and it doesn't look like the electronics ever changed, so it was a good prescription for that. We have different needs of the boat. We're going to be taking it offshore and coastal and cruising long term. We need different electronics than that. We need a different flow on the boat, and in this video, I'm going to go over my thought process for just one part of the whole electronic suite, the MFD, or multifunction display. But before I go too far, there's a few different models of this B&G SR MFD. It comes in a 10, a 12, and a 16. That's the diagonal screen size like you would get on your TV sizing. As you'll notice, new screens, even though they say they're the same size as your old ones, have gotten much smaller. And most of that is that there's not a giant bezel around it anymore. So anyways, back to this one. This screen comes in a 10, a 12, and a 16. I chose this SR10 for two major reasons. One, cost. A 10-inch screen is like $1,000 cheaper than a 12-inch screen. That's significant. And a 10-inch screen is actually less than half of a 16-inch screen. So, take that for what it is. The second reason I chose this one is that I don't want a big screen in the cockpit. Space is a substantial consideration for us. It's a little bit crowded in there as it is. I don't want to obstruct view. There's lots of reasons that I'll go over into this. And one of the big ones is I don't want to be only seeing a computer screen when sailing. The whole point of sailing is to get out there and go and enjoy it. So we'd rather be looking at the water as much as we can. But wouldn't be accurate to say cost wasn't a factor as well. So here we go. MFD, or chart plotter location requirements, in no particular order. Number one, can be easily and safely reached for use, i.e. not having to reach through the wheel or stand in the companionway or lean outboard to use it. Number two, it doesn't impede the sailing of the vessel. We don't want the chart plotter to make it hard to steer or hard to use a winch, or mess with the lines or risk getting caught in the lines or whatever. Number three, it doesn't obstruct the view. We still want to have situational awareness. We want to be able to see through the Dodger. We want to be able to see other boats without having to climb around the chart plotter. Number four, I'd like the chart plotter to be viewable throughout the cockpit. It means it doesn't have to be just one spot to see it. Number five, it's safe from damage and theft. Theft, not so much of a problem around here, but in some places the boat goes, it may be an issue. And number 6, which is something that probably I'm thinking about, but not many others would be, is ease of installation. I really don't want to have to take apart the whole boat in order to just put a chart plotter in. So with those 6, I know that we're not going to get all of them. I would love to get them all, but I know it's not going to happen. There's going to be a compromise in every installation, and this will be no different. So here I am at the helm. As you can see, standing, this camera is about eye level, so it's not a terrible view. It's okay. Right through the isinglass, which is in pretty good shape. I kind of catch the bottom of the handle, not so bad. If I were to sit, it's not great. Great if I want to see the instruments, not great if I want to do anything else, like look at boats in front of me or anything like that. The pod at the helm is enormous. There's a lot in here, more than I wanted. From the side here, it is a big deal. There's plenty there. So my complaints on it. One, obviously, visibility stinks with the pod there. This is me standing. This is about the 11-year-old standing, and then me sitting is right about here. So the 11-year-old sitting is right about here. Not great. Not good for being a lookout. Not really fun for picking a point on the horizon to steer to as well. The biggest complaint I really have, though, is the compass. I'm standing here at the helm. I cannot see my compass. So I need to sit, and then I can see it. But I'm looking through the wheel, which I guess isn't the end of the world. But as we'll be offshore and sailing to a compass course, it's kind of a big deal. Here we have the 11-year-old trying to look out forward, and all she sees is instruments. So that's not great. Sitting is even worse. So then her view is straight into the chart plotter, which is great if you're just steering to a chart plotter, but that sounds like a prescription for seasickness. So really what we're going to do is be steering towards something on the horizon, which won't work well with the pod in the way. So this isn't going to work. The cockpit, pretty nicely laid out, plenty large, coming down the port side here, lots of sitting space. Come around aft, nice padded seat, up into the quarter seats, coming along the transom, the other quarter seat, and forward. Looking aft from the top of the companionway, you'll see pretty much all you got is a pile of nav pods to look at, which really is not ideal. As far as I can tell, there are 8 different places that would fit some or all of the criteria for the plotter. These are places that we've installed them on other people's boats over the years, and some may work, some definitely won't work, but it's worth looking at them all just like we did for everything else. So spot number 1, right here, port forward in the cockpit, cut into the bulkhead. Number 2, starboard forward in the cockpit, cut in, just right opposite where I am, same thing. Number 3, port house top under the Dodger, forward of those clutches. Number 4 would be starboard side, same place. Number 5, port side under the Dodger, outboard, so somewhere right in here. Starboard side would be number 6. Number 7 would be at the helm in a pod, like the electronics are now. And number 8 would be a power pod forward in the cockpit. So first off, I'm going to eliminate 1, 2, and 8 from the list. So 1 and 2 right here, the plotter cut into the bulkhead on either side. I don't like doing it. I hate doing it as an installer. I don't like them there as a functional part of the boat. In lousy weather, I'm going to be tucked up under the Dodger here, or other people will. We're going to be leaning on the plotter, which means nobody can see anything on the screen. My elbow might be, or my foul weather gear, or whatever might be hitting buttons or using the touch screen. Um, these pilots, autopilots, are now can be engaged from the chart plotter. So I'd hate to do that by mistake. Um, Lines are hanging down over it. This is the main halyard. So um, with the sail up, there's a lot more line here. The other side is the main sheet, so there's always going to be lines on it. You can't see it from the other side of the boat, really, but you can see it well from the helm. Add on to all that, electronics are constantly evolving, and manufacturers are always changing the dimensions of their chart plotters. Some have buttons, some don't, whatever. Um, so something goes wrong with this, someone puts a winch handle through it or whatever, we have to update it. That may be a different size screen. Then we need trim rings. We're looking at numerous ways for water to get in. And then, from below, you'd be looking at the back of the chart plotter because the bulkhead's not that thick. So you'd be really looking at the back of it from the salon table or in the galley. The wires are going to be hanging out. It's really just not a good situation for a plotter, especially in this boat. Other boats, sometimes it works, not in this boat. And then number 8, the power pod. So this is the actual cutout size of a power pod. These are the ones that are on a mount, and the chart plotter will go within it. They don't really make one specifically for a 10-inch, so it really just makes it big. You can see it's quite deep as well. It would have to go somewhere like this or on the other side. So we're losing use of this hatch. We're, running the risk of a winch handle hitting it. The lines are in there. It's just really a bad spot. So the bulkhead cutouts, the power pod, so that's 1, 2, and 8 are out. So we're already down to 5 different options. So next up is number 3 and 4, the port and starboard house top under the Dodger, forward of the clutches. Here we are at the helm. As you can see, it's still viewable from the helm. Probably not as well through the camera, but with my own eyes, I'm able to read the numbers down the starboard side of the screen. I can't really read the depth readings on the chart, but I can see the boat location and the coloring contours. So that's not bad. I really want the plotter here. I found myself skewing my answers to the criteria questions to make this happen. The screen is viewable from the helm and most anywhere in the cockpit, with the exception of leaning over to make sure that the winch is in the way. So if I duck down like this and put a handle in it, okay, now I can't see it. But it is viewable from pretty much everywhere in the cockpit, starboard side, even on the seat. Sitting here, still viewable. You can see it from under the Dodger. It's really an excellent spot. The winch is operable without hitting it, as are the clutches just forward of it there. You can still easily reach it. Excuse the Kleenex box, but really just happened to be the right size and it was on board. So you can still operate it and everything's good with it. The plotter's small enough and low enough that it doesn't impede the view of anything other than the traveler, really, and the cowl vent way forward of it. So it doesn't mess up our view, doesn't mess up operation, and really it wouldn't be that bad to install. The port side much easier than the starboard side. Also, the port side wouldn't be over the main sheet, which probably means less line handling near it. See, I pretty much talked us into it. But then there's the last 2. And they're kind of a big deal. So first off, you can see the staysail sheet, the main halyard, and the second reef come right under the Dodger there. There's a gap there for the lines to travel through. It's right at the back of the plotter. Even though it's up on that shelf, water will come through that. And these screens are weatherproof. The one on our skiff is out in the open all the time, but that's not with focused water coming right at the back of it. And if we took a big wave over the bow and across the deck, that would be focused water coming right under the Dodger, right into the back where all the plugs are. It's, designed, tested, and all that stuff to be that way. But why tempt fate if we don't have to? Not a deal breaker, but it is a concern. The last one, actually, before I forget, the other thing on it, the knobs. It is held into the trunnion just by the knobs. Not a big deal around here. Theft isn't so much of a thing. Some places this boat goes, theft may be a problem. It is too easy to just unscrew those, take the plugs out the back, and walk away with it. So consequently, we'll end up leaving the plotter below when we go ashore, or even at night, in case somebody comes aboard, and that's a problem. The last thing I'd want to be doing at 3 in the morning in the middle of a thunderstorm while we drag across an anchorage is monkeying around with the chart plotter, trying to get it plugged in and mounted so I could see how to find the way out in the middle of a squall. That one's probably a bigger deal than the water. But the last one is a really big one. And this one is probably a deal breaker. While I can reach this plotter and use it from right here without being too much into the winch or whatever, I can zoom in, I can zoom out. I know that it'll be more convenient for me to do it from right here in the companionway. And that's a big problem. I don't want to be in the companionway to operate the chart plotter. And I have a fairly decent reach. Some of our crew will not be so big and won't have the same reach. So you can see she can reach up and touch the plotter and operate it. However, with a life jacket and a harness on, she's going to be tangled up in that winch a little bit. And we know what's going to happen is she's going to go right into the companionway and operate it from there. It's wet, it's slippery, it could be pretty lumpy out. That's not what we want. Really don't want to end a long cruise because someone fell down the companionway trying to zoom in on the radar or make a waypoint or whatever it may be. So unfortunately, my favorite spot where I really, really wanted the chart plotter is now out of the mix. So we've eliminated my favorite spot on the port side. I'm not going to do it on the port side, won't do it on the starboard side either. So to the next one, port and starboard side, under the Dodger, outboard. View is okay from pretty much everywhere in the cockpit, except for sitting all the way forward on the opposite side. It's easy to reach, it's easy to use. I think water coming under there and theft are the same concern as they were farther forward. But it does eliminate the concern of someone having to reach into the companionway to use it. We build it up on a little shelf so it would clear the staysail furler. The hatch to below would still work, but my big concern on this one is that the winch handle. As you can see, it does clear it. That's not a problem. But what is a problem and what is my big concern is somebody going to put the winch handle in a bit of a seaway and it slips. It goes there like this, it comes off. Something happens like that and all of a sudden we have a winch handle instead of a MFD. And that's a big concern. I don't want to break it. That's a big expensive concern, I should really say. So starboard side, same problem, and that's the main sheet winch over there. So that would probably be even more of an issue because that one would be more used. I don't really like having all these lines kind of getting tangled up with the wiring. I'm sure we could find a way to cable tie it and make it into a conduit and whatever. But again, the trade-off here is not so much safety of someone falling down the companionway, but more safety of the unit and it not being destroyed by a winch handle that didn't quite get locked in all the way. And again, I don't want to be setting this thing up in the middle of the night or worried that somebody's going to take it just because it's so easy to take. So I hate to say it, but I think anywhere up here, forward end of the cabin house or cockpit is done. What I wanted is not a good fit on this boat. Doesn't mean it's not a good fit on other people's boats. It's just not a good fit on this boat. And you know, honestly, when this boat was made, the pod at the helm was really what it was designed for, and that continues to be true for a lot of vessels. And as much as I want to have it up here, that's just not really a good option. So let's move on to a pod at the helm. Our last location is at the helm in a pod. I guess it's the most predictable. It's the one I really didn't want. Really didn't want it so much that I found 7 other spots to put it in an attempt to find anywhere other than here. This current helm layout is terrible. As we saw, it's hard to see through. I mean, if I'm sitting at the helm, I'm looking right into instruments. I can see over it a little bit, but then right above that is the Dodger. I have to be sitting to see my compass. All this stuff is in my way. I really don't like it. But, you know, this is the most common place that we put them on pretty much everyone's boat. But why don't I want it here? Well, the real reason is because only one person can use it. I guess if we're sitting in either of the quarter seats or along the aft bench, you can see the plotter. But in reality, especially on a long passage, we're not going to be here. We're going to be forward in the cockpit. It's going to be on autopilot, or the auto helms, or the hydrovane is going to be steering. But it's not always going to be here. But that said, we're not always going to have the plotter on. We're not always going to have the radar on. So it's kind of a balance there. Coming into a harbor, I could see this would be really nice. If I'm not, especially if I'm not familiar with it, I can look down. I got my chart right in front of me. But even that's getting a hard time balancing out in my head of not being able to see the compass, and especially of the 11-year-old not being able to see through here at all. So, you know, how big of a deal is it to have to lean around and look over the helmsperson's shoulder? Well, I guess that's a personal preference. I know that it would drive me crazy to have someone right here over my shoulder, which is where I'm going to be doing the primary navigation, looking over the helmsperson's shoulder. So I guess that's a problem. That said, this new B&G unit is like legit viewable at almost 180 degrees in sunglasses. So I don't have to crawl around and get behind the person here. I can see it from here. I still have a very clear view. It's a little bit less of being over the person's shoulders. So that's probably a good thing. The new pod that would fit this is a accurate cutout of it, would be considerably smaller. So that's like 2.5, 3 inches less on the bottom. We would get rid of this top pod altogether. Plotter would sit here. It's exactly it's exactly the same width as the existing pod, but not as tall. Depth is the same as well. So the advantages of a pod, it's here, it's at the helm, it's protected, very easy to see when you're steering. You know, with the new plotter, you can see it a bit from the side, but you know, it'll allow us to have a autopilot control here. The pod will allow the bow thruster controller to be in it. The bow thruster control is kind of a pain. Bow thruster was not on the wish list for this boat, but you know, yet again, another compromise. We also know that it's not going to be on all the time. So it being protected and here for when we need it is a good thing. But you know, with us sitting farther forward most of the time, I'm still not psyched to have it here. But again, we've found no other way. The good news is technology has kind of found a way for us, and as soon as the software update comes out, we'll be able to sit anywhere in the cockpit with a tablet and see our chart plotter relayed on it, or our radar relayed on it, and the AIS relayed on it. So that's a good thing. There's also all sorts of alarms we can set, radar alarms in particular, so that if somebody's sitting over here on watch, reading a book or whatever, it will alert us if something shows up. Same with AIS. The instruments also display AIS, so that's a good thing. So, kind of our theme today is that outfitting a boat is a series of compromises. And unfortunately for me, having the MFD at the helm is a giant compromise, but it's really the best fit for this boat. I can't come up with any other way, and it's the best fit. So MFD at the helm it is, begrudgingly, and there we are. So next up, in a future video, we'll talk about the ancillary devices, the wind instrument, wind, water, VHF, AIS, and the instrument displays. But we haven't figured all that out yet. We'll get there. So we'll see you next time. Thanks.